This week's episode of Monty's Minute is brought to you by Audible. For a free 30-day trial and to receive a free audiobook, just head on over to audible.com/Gamebreaker. What's up, everybody, and welcome to Monty's Minute, episode 27 for April 16th, 2013. I'm Gary Gannon. You're watching Gamebreaker TV. Of course, joining me, as always, the one, the only Mr. Monty Sharma. How are you, sir?
Good, Gary. How are you doing?
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So we're going to start the show off today with some video stuff. First of all, this was from GDC San Francisco, I believe.
Yeah, this is part of a bunch of videos we'll be cutting up and using over the next few months. But I actually got to sit down and talk to Al King, who's the global brand manager for Wargaming. So they do World of Tanks, World of Planes, and World of Warships coming up. It's a really interesting company in terms of the transition that's happening in the market right now. And so, you know, we looked at a few things, and we're going to highlight two of them today. The first piece was really, you know, free-to-play is something that Wargaming has focused on. They, from all things I've heard external to Wargaming, they're doing extremely well. So their conversion rate of free players to paid players is substantial. But they're working out sort of that global strategy of they're killing it in Russia. How are they going to deal with other parts of the world, and what impact does that have on their business? So why don't we play that first clip?
Sure, let's check it out.
Yeah. Fine. If you then express that from a revenue generation point of view, you'll see Germany go right to the top, and then you'll see sort of Poland and Czech drop down, and UK and France come up. So there seems to be a fairly direct correlation between, you know, overall sort of like let's say wealth levels and like, you know, standard of living levels and spending power. And so when we come across the pond into North America, we see that go up again. And so yeah, we see while the number of the player base is lower in America but rapidly growing, with some fairly aggressive targets this year, I might add, when we do get an American player through the funnel into the game and they're bedded in, they really do spend big time. And so yeah, they're welcome.
All right, so they're targeting different demographics, obviously, and funneling. But what did they talk a little bit about some of the strategies of how they're going to be funneling into those countries that haven't, you know, it hasn't really blown up, so to speak, like it has in Russia?
Yeah, you know, so they do well in parts of Europe as well. There's the element of where you've got higher income, you're going to make more money. So if you think about any game developer, they want to concentrate in places where people have, you know, what I would call stupid money. The ability to spend a ton of money and not really sweat it. So for the U.S., their growth here has been slow, but, you know, I see things like they're moving towards esports and things like that that are going to change how people perceive them in the West and pick up more users. They also showed me a demo of a mobile version of World of Tanks. So this ran on an iPad. Yeah, it was really cool. You know, it looked beautiful. It was really nice. The movement was decent. You know, the interaction was decent. I still got smoked in record time. So, you know, I think it took the third game before I got a shot off that hit somebody before I died.
Is that a major part of their strategy to move into some of these areas where they feel like the tablet might be a better platform for some of their games?
Well, it's the thing of finding users where they are, right? So if you're going to hit North America hard, high tablet adoption rate, lots of people who are playing on it, bring them a game, bring them something different, and pull them into your world and start to monetize that segment of what's going on. I mean, you know, World of Tanks is sort of this interesting, Wargaming is this interesting company that they've been, you know, they told me they were celebrating their 15th year, and boy, for 10 or 12 of those,
they
were doing
nothing. Like, well, not nothing, but it took them 12 years to really figure it out, and that's where they really honed in on it. We both said the same thing. Everybody at the party, at the 15-year party, everybody was like, I had no idea they were a company that's been around this long.
A lot of hard work, and now they're exploding. You know, they're going from a small company in Belarus to, you know, massive international. They've got large staff in Europe. They've got a large staff in the U.S. They're hitting Asia really hard. And, you know, one of the things they've done is they've also bought up a couple of studios recently. So you're seeing them sort of adapt. And, you know, I asked Al the question of, you know, we're seeing a lot of studios shut down who are, you know, the old AAA developers and some big names in the industry for a while. Is this time for the rise of the indie, and what does this cycle look like? So why don't we play that second clip?
View. I think it's a fair summary. Yeah, I mean, what typically happens, you know, in the entertainment industry, is you do get eras, and at the beginning of era, it tends to be, you know, defined by a more independent entrepreneurial spirit. Mm-hmm. Inevitably, once an industry starts to generate cash, you get sort of venture capitalists and, you know, people that high net worth individuals and people that you want to invest in stock, and so you will see a sort of maturation and to a certain extent a sort of corporatization of the space. And I think we saw that with console, and that gets to a point where, you know, whether it's just relentless sequels or a lack of new IP or just, you know, too aggressive marketing, at some point, mm-hmm. you know, that sort of plateaus and people are waiting for the next big thing. So we've seen the impact of the internet and broadband on the space, and initially that was just a few small partisan players, and now that's kind of gone mainstream. We've seen that evolve from subscription based to now free to play, and, you know, we are grateful that Victor and Misha and the team spent so much time just sort of jamming and cooking mm-hmm. on World of Tanks and getting the balance absolutely right before they brought that to market, and it's, you know, completely sort of nailed it, as it were. Yeah. And so, you know, that's kind of driving the free-to-play revolution. And then running in parallel now, we're seeing the impact of mobile games, of mobile and portable formats as well. Hence,
so free-to-play, obviously, you know, a big part of the wargaming structure and just sort of philosophy, I guess. Do you still feel like, are we still at the beginning phases of that sort of era that he's talking about?
Well, you know, we're in that transition phase of, we're seeing the decline of the last sort of cycle of growth. You're going to see companies grow up, and so, you know, World of Tanks is still this, you know, this lovable group of people that we know. We still know most of the people there. You know, that's great. They're growing so fast in a couple of years. You know, it'll be hard to get to victory. You'll have so many mm-hmm. other things going on that, you know, getting to Victor, getting to Arthur, getting to Al is a big deal. So they'll become that next generation of dominant players. And, you know, when you look at things in the, you know, I think we're going to come back to wargaming a number of times over the next year or so, is if you look at things like World of Warplanes, and encourage people to give it a shot, because what you're going to see there, and, you know, I've looked at it a couple of times, is they're trying to sort out where that fun element is. So I used to play a lot of flight simulators back in the late 80s, early 90s. You know, I had the joysticks, you know, all that sort of stuff. And so this is
Thrustmaster.
Yeah, this is the first time I've played one in like 15 years, 16 years. And it was kind of neat, but they're trying to get the control model right, and they're trying to get it to something that moves. And so if you look at it, you know, sort of how we look at things in terms of how the business and the company is evolving, play the game with the eye of, hey, what are they trying to do? How much fun is it? How interested am I in upgrading my plane and doing things like that? And then watch as they keep tweaking it as they get to launch, and you'll see a lot of interesting things. So I think that's particularly cool.
Yeah, I think we still have World of Warplanes beta keys on Gamebreaker.tv. If you guys haven't checked them out, I think they're still available. Check it out. I could be wrong, but we may have given them all away. I agree. I feel like the World of Warplanes beta as well. there's this new thing with free to play games, right? Is that and it's not open beta, it's closed beta, so you need keys. But betas are I feel like Wargaming are actually doing a beta test with this game because they are drastically changing it over time. So I don't feel like this is like a soft launch by any means. I mean, a lot of things with free to play now, the open beta is sort of the soft launch, but I agree. I think World of Warplanes is indeed in beta, and you're seeing them really, and that's what I talked to them at GDC as well, and it seems like they're right now they are really just fixated on that fun factor. Like, where is that sweet spot between sim and arcade that makes everybody happy and it really feels fun? So yeah, I agree. I think we're going to come back to them a lot because, I mean, there are a lot of success stories out there, but I almost feel like right now in our space, after Riot and League of Legends, Wargaming kind of is following in those footsteps with the free-to-play model.
Yeah, and Wargaming is truly independent. So if you think about major free-to-play players, you know, the stuff that NCSoft does, Riot has substantial ownership from Tencent. So they're not, you know, they're not a couple of scrappy guys anymore. So watching this evolution of Wargaming is going to be very interesting.
All right, let's do some viewer questions. First up, this one from Grant. Grant has a question. He says, not being a programmer or artistic at all, what is the best entry-level job to look for to break into the industry with no school outside of high school? Is it a tester? If so, how do you go about getting a testing job? So
it's an interesting question, and let's look at, you know, the comment of with nothing more than a high school degree. So when an employer sees that, the biggest question they're going to ask is, okay, so why? Now, a number of people have very good reasons for stopping after high school. Either, you know, the educational environment didn't fit with them, they can't afford to go to college, you know, other things in life came up and gave them problems, and, you know, they're down the road. At that point, the thing that you have to prove to an employer is, look, there's more to me than just finishing high school says. And one of those things is, you know, when somebody goes to a college, and depending on which college they go to in the U.S., you know that they've achieved a certain level of functionality. Like they were good enough to get into a top-tier university, or they went to a research university, and they had that level of skill. They've been screened at that level. When you get somebody who just has a high school degree, you really have no information on them. So at that point in time, you've got to find a way to establish a baseline. And that means you're going to have to network, you know, your butt off and convince people that, hey, I'm hardworking, I'll test for nothing. You know, one of the things that you can certainly do there is focus in on a fast-growing game. I mean, look at, you know, World of Warplanes. Look at some of the stuff Jagex is doing. I know they're hiring QA. But go in as a player, right? Go in as a player and work as if you were a tester. Read everything you can about QA. You know, look up videos on YouTube, and get to the point where you're writing up really good bug reports. You know, a bug report means you've replicated that bug 3 times. You've written in detail what you did before, what caused the bug, what happened after. You put all that stuff together, and you do it consistently for a while. And somebody's going to say, hey, wow, look at this guy on the forums. He's actually bright, you know, useful. We should talk to him. At that point in time, when they get to you and you say, look, I only finished high school, but here's my reason. You know, this is why I only went that far. But you've seen what I can do. I'm, you know, really keen to do more. You know, give me a shot.
Now, would you say also, in addition to that, so that'd be great if they were doing that for a specific game company that they want to get into Q&A. But I would almost say, to follow up, that they should probably also be keeping all of that information as documentation as kind of your resume. Because if you don't get a job with that game company, you might be able to use that as part of your resume for somebody else. Like, you know, attach to your resume in your package and say, like, hey, here are bug reports I wrote, you know, and you don't want to probably give them every single one, but here are bug reports I wrote for X game, you know, and they could see how detailed they are and how perfect they are and things like that. And just, you know, start documenting all that. Yes, that is true. But I'm sure, I'm sure, well, I guess on the flip side, I'm sure there's probably something you can work out where you can, well, maybe you can keep them. And I don't know. There's got to be a way that you could somehow use that data to your advantage. So I wouldn't just let it go out into the ether.
No. And if the game's launched, then your NDA's lifted. You can do whatever you want. But it's absolutely the thing that you've got to find a way to prove yourself in the absence of somebody else having said that, yeah, this person's this good.
Is Q&A definitely definitely the place for a person like this to go into?
QA is certainly one opportunity. I had an interesting conversation with Rich Weil from Metaverse and Mod Squad. And actually, we have a clip that we'll use in a future show from him.
Do you believe that like sort of some sort of form moderator or something like that could possibly?
Yeah.
You see somebody who's really super helpful in the forums constantly and just helping all the other people out and just having really good level-headed answers. That might be another good in.
The community side is entirely possible. So be the guy who, does the community side. They'll see that, they care about that. One other area that's kind of interesting is sort of marketing, where, and this I've seen happen more with sort of Magic the Gathering than anything, where you actually get players who start to organize a little bit at the local level, and the company goes by and says, well, that player, not only are they a good player of our game, but they're pretty sensible, intelligent, and look what they've done with the local community. They've set up a tournament, or they came up, with some sort of thing to get more people engaged in this title. Again, something interesting, maybe somebody want to pull into our marketing department. Whatever path you take, I'd encourage you to get a degree, though, because for the rest of your life, you're going to have to keep proving yourself each step you take. So,
One other quick follow. I would say that even there's some outside of the box things. This just kind of occurred to me that, not naming any names, we have actually had 3 or 4 people who have been hosts on shows here on Gamebreaker either get hired by game companies, or there are also a few that have been approached by game companies that they actually turned down, which is interesting. So that's, when they're paying attention, and if you're if you're in media and you're talking about this stuff and you have really intelligent, conversation, and they can tell whether you know what you're talking about or not. They've approached some of our people and said, hey, you want to come work for so-and-so? And so think outside the box.
Absolutely. You're going to have to prove yourself one way or another. Good luck.
All right, next up, this one in from Corey Hernandez. Says, hey, Gary and Monty. First, I'd like to say thanks for doing a great information show like this. My questions are, what are the different types of development cycles used? For example, CCP uses Scrum cycles, which also I think a lot of companies use Scrum. Corey wants to know, what are the benefits of one over another? Is there a difference in development style based on the game type or company size? So, first of all, for people who don't understand, maybe you can give me like a 30-second rundown of what Scrum actually is and what they're talking about.
Well, let's start with the original way we used to do things. There's an approach that's called waterfall. So the waterfall approach really focuses on planning what you're going to do. And we've had questions in the past of people saying, hey, shouldn't game developers know how long it takes to do this or to do that? So using waterfall, what you'd say is, we're going to build a game that has these features in it. So we know exactly what the features are that are going into the game. We specify what each of these features looks like. We assign how much time and effort it's going to take to make each of these features. And then the team goes and they're racing towards that launch date, because we know how long this is going to take, and they're knocking off exactly everything we told them to do. And the biggest problem with that is it leaves you no room to move when you've started. You may have picked exactly the wrong path. You're probably wrong about a whole bunch of things related to time. And, this is what led to lots of crunch and grief in the past. So when you look at Scrum or Agile, the concept there is, we're going to keep working until either a fixed time or until our product, or a fixed time, and our product manager or product owner says, this is something I want to ship. So you're not necessarily specifying at the beginning all of the feature set. Now, yes, you have a good idea. You've talked about a whole bunch of ideas, but a lot of this focuses on sort of the core. We're going to focus on this cluster here and that cluster there. That's really where we're going to differentiate. So our combat mechanism is going to be different. We're going to change crafting in this. That's going to be really unique. So let's focus a lot of effort there. So the way Scrum works is you have what's called a sprint planning session, where everybody gets together and they say, by team, here are the most important things out of all the things we could be working on. So, we've got a team that's working on a back-end integration system. They're going to add in a chat server. Well, okay, here's all the different things we can make the chat server do. These are our different options. We're going to take the top most important ones off the list, and we're going to get them done in this sprint. Each person on the team takes personal responsibility for these tasks. So you sign up for the task and you say, yes, I will write, that chunk of code and that chunk of code. Yes, I will, make these art elements. And you go through that sprint, you meet daily, and you're trying to, reallocate resources. Something's easier than you thought, something's harder than you thought, and you might drop things off that particular sprint and say, look, we're not going to do this, we're not going to get there. At the end, everybody together, they show what they've got, everybody's looking at the builds, and you go through, the sprint planning cycle. Now, what that gives you is the ability to be very flexible in terms of you've discovered something during a sprint that's really kind of interesting. You say, wow, this is fun, this is neat, we should explore this, we should do more related to this. Somebody on their own time did this little hack demo. Let's see if we can actually turn this into something. And so it's a much more organic way to grow. And let me tell you, as a manager on one of these things, normally you have no idea when engineering is going to deliver something. I mean, they'll tell you, and they try their damnedest, but there's so many unknowns, and they don't want to disappoint you. So usually you get 3/4 of the way through, sometimes 80% of the way through, and everybody's telling you things are, we're still going to make the date. It's going to be hard, but we'll still make the date. It's going to be a close run thing, but we're going to make that date. We got no shot of hitting that date, right? When you're doing Agile, you're seeing sprint by sprint where you are, right? You're making these builds regularly, and you know where you are, and you have a much better feel.
So are there any benefits? Are there any other sort of industry standard setups that any other companies are using, or is that pretty much the standard?
Yeah, so there's things called like Kanban, and which is a Japanese variation on Agile. It may have grown up independently. There's a few other things like that, but a lot of what modern design philosophy is about is put the power back in the hands of the people who are going to do the work. Let them figure it out and let them tell you and let them own that responsibility. And again, as a manager, you can see, hey, I've got this one senior engineer here who knocked off all of these tasks during, this cycle. I've got another one who managed to get 2 things done. You can't hide if you're mediocre when you're running Agile either. It comes out clearly, and that helps as well.
All right, next up, this one in from Max McKay. He says, so the Camelot Unchained Kickstarter has an internal tester tier, which includes early access and requires an NDA and time to submit detailed reports. It says, made me think about the future of this as an entry into the game business. It seems like a way for the average gamer to try out what QA is like without having to switch jobs to find out. Could this be a viable way into the industry in the future? What do you think? Can Max, can you pay your way in and kind of, use this to your benefit? I think you possibly can to some extent.
You possibly can, but I would say you don't need to pay your way in. So the only reason I would do that is I love this IP. I really want to play it. And hey, if I get to contribute to it, that's going to make me even happier. Absolutely do it. If you're looking for a way to prove yourself in the industry, I would go after, games that you don't have to pay for. Get out there and prove yourself, and you can do it. I mean, every game these days is running a test server that's publicly accessible. So you can see their next build, and you can go bug hunting there and all that sort of thing. And so look at it that way. It's not necessarily something you need to pay for.
Mr. Monty Sharma, follow him on the Twitter at Monster, MONTSTER27. And if you have questions for Monty, you can email Monty at, it's really easy, Monty at Gamebreaker.tv. Monty at Gamebreaker.tv. Send in your questions. We love the questions. We do the show live every single Tuesday at 3 PST. Coming over for the live show. And if you have video questions, don't be afraid with the video questions. You can send those into Monty as well. Record yourself up on YouTube and send us the link, and we'll play it on the show. Have a great week, everybody. We'll be back next week for some more Monty's Minute. See you next week.
See you, Gary.
See you, Monty.